And we're live. Take it away, Si.
Hello, and welcome to the Gers TV, guys. My name is Si Leslie. I'm going to do a couple of shares now, so I'll pass these on to the lads. I think we know everything that we're going to talk about tonight. It's the press conference today, and it was the new manager unveiled as Russell Martin. All right, guys, take it away.
Sure, I'll go for it. Yeah, so we're there. We've now got a new head coach at last. Obviously, we lost Clement at the end of February. The process has been long, drawn out, and frustrating for all, I'm sure. But now Russell Martin is the new official head coach of Rangers. So we're joined this evening by Lewis in the studio with Si, Gordy, somewhere in Blackpool, we believe, and from FollowFollow joining us as well. We've got Mark Dingwall. How are we all doing, guys? I'll come to you first, Gordy.
Hi, mate. Yeah, just get right into it. I think the word that I would sum up today with Russell Martin's appointment is unfortunately underwhelming. That said, he's new manager of our football club, he's new manager of Rangers, and
Head coach.
the new head coach. Sorry, yes, I know you're up to date in the modern world, Brian. Yeah, I think it's a case of that we have to put some trust in the new owners. We have to put some trust in the new sporting director and the chief executive officer. And I think for the next, time will tell. But we have to, as much as I've got reservations, I put my trust in them for now.
Yep, Lewis, yourself, mate.
Yeah, not too bad. A bit similar to Gordy there. I see I think majority of the fans are quite unhappy with the appointment, but I mean, I think he's 5 minutes in the door. I think we've got to give the guy a bit of a chance. As much as it's an underwhelming appointment considering who was appointed, I think we've got to give him a chance, personally.
Yeah. Mark, yourself, was he your choice? Did you have somebody else in mind?
He certainly wasn't my choice, because I think it's a huge risk, and I'm not sure that after, this is now four head coaches or match secretaries, as Gordon would probably call them, going back to the olden days. I'm not sure that with his CV that he's enthused too many people. I think you can look at his record in two ways. One, does anybody ever get a job in ideal circumstances? And at a lot of the clubs that he's been at, success has been relative. So, MK Dons, Swansea going through downsizing, with Southampton, they've always been a little bit of a yo-yo club, although, most people would still associate them as being a big club and regularly in the top flight. If you look at his results at some of these places, scoring a lot of goals, giving away a lot of goals, with Southampton, a little bit up and down, especially in the promotional season. Dreadful start, long, I think it was 25 games without a loss, almost screws it up in the final run-in and then gets there through the playoffs. Can we blame somebody from a promoted club for getting a bit of a hiding in the Premiership? Well, if you look at the statistics, it's almost a certainty that if you go up, you come down the next year. There's been very few clubs have bucked that trend. I think the problem that most people have is that they've got this view of him, and he was kind of adamant today that been labelled with a no change kind of label that he got is very much, he reckons, as a media thing, whereas he would argue and roll through some of the players that he had, that he didn't have, that he had to sell, that he bought in, that he can change. In terms of our team, I think he realises, I think most of us do, that in terms of athleticism, they probably aren't big enough, aren't strong enough, not fit enough to play the kind of football that he was being called upon to play to compete in the Premiership. I think that there will be, Thelwell, during his interview at the press conference, he said maybe 6 starters coming in. And if you think about the squad, the support players that you need, I reckon we'll probably sign close to a dozen players this summer. I think it'll be that big. There'll be some stars, and there will be some some players that will be like, you could almost count Barron as one of these type squad players, Cameron coming in, that they would be playing but not expecting to play every game. Barron, I don't know if I'm being a bit too harsh there, but that's the kind of feeling that I got, you know. And he knows that he's under pressure right away. I think he expected that coming to Rangers. He's been here previously, and but I think he knows the state of play that there's been at the club, the pressure that's on him, and I think he's also relatively grateful that the club have given him the opportunity, considering who I think we all know the type of coaches that we're hoping to get. That's not really down to him. I mean, I think once you've had Graham Souness when he came many moons ago now, and then you have Steven Gerrard with those kind of pedigrees as your manager, then almost anybody is likely to be underwhelming. And so I think if you see the interviews that have been on STV, BBC from outside the ground, there are people prepared to give him a chance. But I think he will have literally no honeymoon. And if he goes into that first game, against Motherwell or Kelly, and they're 2-0 down at half time, then the pressure's going to be on straight away. But I think he knows that.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, mate, I'm glad that we've hired a British manager, and we've long spoken about the need for a British identity come back to the team with a core of Scottish and British players in there. Are you glad that we have hired somebody from the UK?
Yes and no. I'm not wanting to. One thing I don't want to do tonight is turn that into a doom and gloom. That's why we left this to tonight. Obviously, since last night we could have went live. To answer your question, over 100 days to get a manager, 26 candidates. I was looking for Steven Gerrard, and you got Russell Martin. There's not much you can say about that. You want a Hollywood type signing, you get Martin. However, he's in the door now. My only first concern right away, as he says, the fitness coach doesn't arrive till next week, and we've only got 3 weeks to the new season. Mark alluded to is maybe signing 12 players in the next few weeks. We don't have a lot of time to get these guys in. The staff should already be lined up. They should be at Ibrox for tomorrow, in my opinion. But we've got a British-style coach. He certainly knows about the club. He knows the understanding of the club. The pressure is a big thing for people. He knows the pressure, the expectations. And I know, when I spoke to Mark earlier, he did mention the fact that he would be looking to make the players a lot fitter and faster. So that is a good start right away. And he does have a good core of young players at the club. So we've got a British-type manager. We did want a British-type manager. Whether he's a big enough name, well, probably not. But he's here, and I think we all agreed a few weeks ago we've got to back this new revolution. I wanted a Souness-style revolution. We didn't get that. But it's early doors. We've got a British manager, and we're going to have to go with it.
Yeah. Lewis, yourself, do you think this shows that the new American owners don't really care too much about public opinion when it comes to their decision making?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you've seen over the last couple of days, especially when all the news coming out that Russell Martin was close to getting the job. 90-95% of the Rangers fans were against Russell Martin obviously getting the job. Of course, you had candidates such as obviously Davide Ancelotti, Steven Gerrard, as you mentioned earlier, Si, but you also had Marco Rose and Brian Prisk as well, who are candidates for the job. Obviously, out of the 5 or 6 candidates that I mentioned there, Russell Martin would probably be at the bottom of my mind. He's absolutely not my favourite for the job. But as you said there about the American owners not caring about public opinion, I think they're the experts in this sort of situation. It's them that are hiring the manager. You've got to respect their opinion. You've got to support it, I think.
You still there, mate?
Aye, I think that's somebody just finished talking. He's waiting to go back in.
Sorry. For me, with the public opinion side of things, see if the American owners were that bothered about public opinion, I don't think they would have bought Rangers, because public opinion in Rangers are very, very, controversial, and there's certain, you can even talk about political parties, certain sections of the media, there's certain sections that do not like us, and it's well known that they don't like us. So see if they were that bothered about public opinion, they wouldn't have come anywhere near us, and if they were that bothered about kind of reputation stuff, they wouldn't have touched us with a barge pole. So I think this is probably one of several things that are going to happen over the next few years that will not be popular. And there's things like stadium naming rights. I think at some point we're going to get to Canty for Ibrox to develop the stadium as well. I think we're going to see ourselves in Hampden for a year at some point, probably in the next 10 years. So there's certain things that we just need to go, and we need to trust in their professionalism, their expertise, and we need to also remember these guys, they've got the title deeds to the club, so we need to support everything they're doing as much as we can. We might have opinions about it, but whatever it takes, we need to get behind it.
Mark, just a quick one for you. Obviously, were you at the press conference today, or was it a video link?
Simon, you've got to trust me, Neil. I was there.
He was there.
What was your opinion on it then, with the actual his presence and obviously the chat afterwards?
I mean, some of us get the invite, some of us don't. You know, that's life.
I couldn't make it.
I immediately zoomed in on his.
I was washing my hair.
Which one? I immediately zoomed in on his yachting shoes, and he went. This was just like, you know, off camera, and he's like, "Oh right, aye, the brogues." And I said, "No." I said, "Brogues is a thing, you know, that was advocate. That's Dutch. They can get away with that." I said, "Dark suit, black socks, black shoes. If you can kind of envision yourself as like a Church of Scotland minister, that's really how the fans expect you to be." The press conference again. To be honest, kind of took there's the usual questions that were going to be asked. I would also say that again, you know, whether it was myself or Davy Edgar or Stevie Clifford, the questions coming from fan media were probably more pertinent than, you know, what a lot of the mainstream media were trying to manoeuvre him into a position to get quotes out of him. And you can imagine what kind of quotes they wanted. And he didn't take that bait. And we were asking him stuff about, you know, tactics, players, you know, style of play, da-de-da-de-da, that was actually about football and not about, if you could say, the business of football or the melodrama. And he handled it all pretty well. He saw the traps that were being set for him, and he sidestepped them. He does have a presence. You know, he was pretty good. He's quite a bit better than I expected him to be. Patrick Stewart was also there, and Thelwell. Thelwell was not a massive presence, a bit quieter, but also delivered quite confidently. I think he's got what I like about him is he was at Everton during a time when they had to sell and they had to buy under pressure, and he seemed to do reasonably well at that. Same as I mentioned before, he was at Wolverhampton during the George Mendes kind of era, where there's all sorts of craziness going on with transfers, and he's got a job, because if you look at our academy, as soon as we produce a decent guy down to England and warehoused by the big clubs down there because of the compensation so poor, and then, you know, we don't have a reserve team or a B team, and it's not going to be solved this season, but it will have to be solved, because he's adamant from his background, you know, like being charge of youth at Preston North End and a few other places, that you definitely need a funnel of players coming through, and that they will get a chance to see whether they can make it in the top league. So he seems to think that's a vital part of the club, that you do need to have that train of young players coming through. But it's not going to be solved this year, that's for sure.
Or do you want to add anything, mate?
No, I just want to maybe just ask a separate question, or move the conversation on to another question I've got in my head. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you will very quickly, but he signed a 3-year contract, is that right?
So we understand you.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that Gerrard also signed a 3-year contract as well. Do you think that means he's got a 3-year kind of time frame to win the league then? Do you think that's the expectation? Is he given the 3 years like Gerrard? Or what's your opinion on the fact he's given a 3-year contract? Because my take on that would be that his remit for this season coming up, unfortunately, is to rebuild the team and close the gap, second season trophies, and then third season in the league. That'd be my taking a 3-year contract, but I'd be interested to hear your guys' opinion on that.
I think that was one of the questions that they were trying to get him to answer was what's your what you expect to do this season. They tried the question loads of different ways, and all he would say is, I want us to win more games, and the rest of it takes care of itself. So he wasn't going to be hamstrung by having, I want us to win 2 cups minimum or stuff like that would be a hostage to fortune. He knows how the game's played in terms of the media, and he was desperate not to get hamstrung by making comments like that, So that shows that he's well aware of the pressure. Again, he's going to be getting paid big bucks, so big bucks comes big pressure. And if you look at the teams he's been with, he wouldn't be on absolute fortunes at Swansea, but he'd be in really good money in the Premiership. So he knows that there's rewards go with this, but it does involve a lot of pressure. He's obviously, as most coaches do, he's got a kind of conceit of himself. He believes that he can develop players. Believes that he can see a player. Believes that he can see a player that's been played in the wrong position or the wrong tactical positioning for the whole team. And he's obviously got his, it's been well documented how his teams tend to play, but he's adamant that he is able, with the right players, to adjust the team. So he said, I want to be aggressive in possession and I want to be aggressive out of possession, which is easy to say, but then it becomes, are your players properly athletically fit? And are they up to the task of doing that for 90 minutes? And that's a big question, because as we all know, a lot of teams can look good for the first hour and then they start to tire. And maybe a lot of clubs don't have the personnel to see out games, but he's aware of that. Also, I did say to him, especially in the last 5 seasons, where I would say it's been a little bit of a golden age for us in Europe, not just because of the number of games we've played, but also the quality of the opposition we've come up against and overcome, that the fans don't really, I don't think, regard that as an additional bonus anymore. I think they expect to be in Europe and competing against those kinds of teams. So that means that unlike other places he's been, there is an expectation of getting results in Europe, and that also adds in the size of the squad again becomes a factor. For instance, do we expect, if Tav stays, and I would like to see him stay for various reasons, do we expect him to be playing nearly 70 games next season? I don't think he can do it, and I don't think he should be asked to do it. And there's a few other players who physically are going to be asked to ship up or shape out, or accept that their time's going to be limited.
Mark, just to come back with that, obviously you alluded earlier on that you're selling Mr. Edgar, gave him some advice on fashion tips, which we'll take that as it is. If I was to speak to him myself, I would give him one bit of advice, and that is he's going to have to win the fans over quite quickly. And to do that, I would suggest something similar to what you mentioned there. James Tavernier can't play every game like he used to, and he's not the player he used to be. And the first thing I think he should be looking at is a change of captaincy. Was that discussed at all?
It was certainly hinted at. I mean, there were various parts to today's press conference. There was the main open one. There was the stuff that Rangers TV did for themselves, and it's now starting to go online. There's stuff that will be going out at lunchtime tomorrow with Patrick Stewart and Thelwell. They did extra stuff, and then you kind of moved to different rooms and did a bit of background stuff here and there. So he certainly, what you're saying there, he knows that Tav has become a bit of an issue. My perspective is that the football club's a football club, and how do we look back in this in 10 or 15 years' time? And I would say, if you look at Tav's service to the club, and it's been great service, over a long time, and people can go, oh, he's only won one trophy. That's the circumstances that were at the club. That's not down to Tav. That's down to circumstances at the club. And I think in terms of the goals he's scored, the vital goals he's scored, the way that he's conducted himself on and off the pitch, then having been here for 10 years, I think we do. I'm not saying we owe Tav something, but he should be given a good farewell. I believe anyway.
It's a level of respect, Mark. Yeah. That's that. I've got to give him a level of respect for his service to the club. Something that we didn't do particularly well, in my opinion, with Lee Wallace. I think we badly let Lee Wallace down, and the way that he left the club, considering the sacrifices that he made for us with his kind of personal career, obviously coming down to the lower leagues and stuff with us. So I think we've got to learn from our mistakes in that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mark, sorry, when you were, obviously Simon's alluded to the fitness coach not starting until Monday. That's a separate conversation. I know we do still have some staff left at the club. Was there any further conversation? I think the press conference was quite vague, I think, about the makeup of the backroom team. Do you have any more information on if there'll be any other coaches joining us, and what's the expectation on that?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember their names, but I think there's a core of 4 of them.
Mark Grimes, I think was one, wasn't it? The assistant.
Yeah, he was there. He was there today.
So the assistant is in place, but he said that there would be kind of conversations over the next couple of weeks. So did you get any more information on that, or do you have any more kind of expectation on that?
It was kind of like you say. It was a bit vague about we need to look at the the medical staff, the physios, the usual stuff. I mean, if I keep referring back to Defoe did a great interview after 55 where he was talking about, basically the club went balls out to win 55. And he was saying, the care that taking care of the doctors, the medical staff, the availability of massages, etc., that the club really went above and beyond what he'd seen at other clubs in the past. And I think after 55, there was a rowing back on expenditure, which is perhaps understandable, but then again, you could actually say, well, sign one less shite player, and that gives you plenty of money to pay for all these guys. Because that is
very good point, actually. Yeah.
I mean, because that's the thing is, if you look at the way the club's been funded, I mean, between November last year and January this year, they brought there's about 9 million of debt was converted to shares, and 9 million of the money shares that they had available to issue were issued. So that's 18 million quid to kind of stabilise the club, and most of that's going out in players' wages. I mean, the average squad player is getting an absolutely eye-watering salary and bonuses and God knows what, because that's the way the business is. So you've got to be aware of that. I mean, we can go, oh, he's a £5 million player or a £10 million, and it just rolls off your tongue. You don't actually. Well, I'm convinced that I certainly don't know the difference between a £5 million player and a £7 million player, because once you get to that stage, it's probably going to cost you the same amount in his wages over the terms of his contract. I mean, it'd be quite easy to get for a lot of these guys to get £1 million a year in wages. And if you're going to invest, which I think you should do, in the backroom staff, it's like maintenance in a house. It pays you back eventually if you have got the medical staff that stop people getting injured and carrying chronic injuries, and that it enables them to recover quicker if you've got the required level in the background. So I would certainly say that managers come and go, but that setup should be almost space age. We should be at the cutting edge in that, because I believe we're big enough to do it, and I believe that it does reward you in the long term.
So guys, a quick one for everybody here. I didn't get to see the press conference. I've been really busy today. I will watch it later, and interviews. It's a new era. We've spoken about that. It's a new style of management where it's a kind of coaching role more than a manager. Who is going to be deciding what players we buy?
That'll probably be Kevin Defoe, I'd assume. Is
it going to be the
sorry,
director of football?
I'm just in the middle of banning one of our pals across the road. Sorry.
Aye.
Sorry. I think they actually touched on that at the press conference today, Si. I think it was basically there was nobody's a saying that they basically looked at each other and said, we're going to work together. Neither of them actually really wanted to take leadership and even answering the question on its side, to be honest, when from the press conference.
Thelwell said that he had never signed a player for the first team that wasn't sanctioned by the manager that he was working under.
Aye, because that's only fair. That's only fair.
Which is what most of them will tell you anyway.
Yeah.
Aye. I think that's...
I found it quite... Sorry, I was going to say, but what Mark said there, I think it was quite significant that he singled out that he hasn't bought a player without managerial approval with the first team. I think what you'll find is he might be responsible for bringing in some younger players, maybe B team players, maybe get a B team, and the first team coach, as we said, Russell Martin, will work in collaboration with Thelwell for the first team players. So I think it was quite significant that he actually specifically referenced the fact that he hasn't bought anything for the first team. So I think his expectation would be he'll bring in maybe reserve players or younger players, and then work with Russell Martin for the first team players. I actually thought Thelwell didn't speak, as Mark said earlier on in the show. I don't think Thelwell said too much. He was quite quiet, but when he did speak, I think he carried himself quite well. He spoke with confidence. So out of the three at the press conference, actually, I was most impressed with Thelwell.
Fair enough.
Your hope is that Martin's had a chance to assess the squad. There'll be, archive footage, and he'll obviously be speaking I always forget the guy's name, the Moroccan boy that we've got in. We hopefully have spoken to him about, aye, and he'll be looking at saying, right, this is the style of play that I want to play, and these are the types of player I want. And then he'll go with Thelwell, and they'll have basically a surge of recruitment for what he would probably see as essential parts of the machine. Go and work with the players for the first maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then identify and go back with Thelwell and say, these are the other things I need. Can you go and get them? And have an A list of players that they want to sign that they both collaborate with and came up with together. Alternates at that, and possible kind of progression players and kind of younger targets. Martin then goes back to the team and gets us ready for the Champions League qualifying. Thelwell goes out and signs the ball, and he goes back to him and says, "This is what I've got for you. These are the results. I managed to get X, Y, and Z off of A list, and I couldn't get him, but I've got you this guy and this girl for B list. There you go. Go to the Champions League qualifiers and do what you can."
I think as well, I went out of my way to stress to him that whilst people have been, in general, very patient over the last 10 years, that's been running out, and last season it really ran out. And I think the climate around the club has become not aggressive, not demanding, but I felt it actually became poisonous. I felt that there's a section of our support who are utterly hysterical about virtually any subject, about every department, whether that was footballing, non-footballing, wanted to get rid of directors, wanted to get rid of investors, and it was a shrieking hysteria. And that's what he's dealing with now. You can say that's the internet generation, but it definitely exists. And being a bigger club, we probably have more of them than smaller clubs. And I think also the neglect of the fan base by the directors meant that was able to take hold. So he's coming in as not everybody's first choice, with we can say a decent or a mediocre coaching background. So he's in the firing line right away, and I believe that he's fully aware of that. So he's got to be firing in cylinders from the start. What Simon's saying, the physio isn't here. Well, sometimes life isn't perfect.
The players aren't here to train though. The players on holiday.
But the coach should be there before. All the staff should be there before. They should be there setting the groundwork before the players.
You're saying there should be, right? And I agree with you.
They've had 101 days to get it ready.
The fact is, he's not here. So if somebody's number 4 in the setup, get on with it. Doesn't stop you doing other things with the players. Doesn't mean that other staff haven't had that added to their duties whilst he wasn't in place. So let's not get absolutely free. I mean, for instance, I could say to you, Scott Brown had such an easy time when he was at Celtic, but he would have been a fully fit Joey Barton joining us that season, would have put his gas at a peep. And he might have done, but he might not have done. If he wasn't away commentating in the Euros or wherever he was, he might have made a difference. In the end, he didn't make a difference. But hey-ho, didn't he kill the club? You got to get on with these things happening in real life.
So the big one for me, right, guys, I was wanting to put out here. We're talking about 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get a team together. I would think he's going to go down the Sooners route and build for the back. For the ones that are a bit younger, Graham Souness, his big thing was if we didn't lose goals, we don't lose games. And he made the defence, he went with the goalkeeper and then he built a great defence and worked his way up. Do you think they'll go about it that way, or do you think they'll go for wingers first, or what's going to be the priority?
Well, can you buy a traditional winger these days? Do they exist? In terms of what you're saying there, I think it makes sense, Simon. But it's defence is only part of the game. And it makes sense that you do go for safety first, and I'm sure that he'll have that in mind. It then becomes, as we've seen over the last year, is what formation do you use? Are you going to be flexible in it? Because he's very, very, everything about this guy, everything that people say about him is that he's very attack minded, and as I said, his philosophy is aggression in attack and aggression in defence. And you need a certain kind of player to be able to do that for 90 minutes. And, the best ones aren't cheap.
Yeah, point. There's certain guys in the building that we just know have not got that in them. See, if you point to somebody like Danilo, there's no aggression in there whatsoever. I think you could possibly get a bit of aggression out of Dessers, I think, up there. McCausland, Cortez, there's guys like that you just know you're not going to get that level of aggression out of. So, I agree with you, Si. I think we do need to strengthen the back. I think we need a whole new back line, maybe with the exception of John Souttar and arguably Jack Butland. But I think defensively is our biggest concern. But the fact that he is so attack minded, I think he might be just tempted to actually just go out and focus and, goals win games. So go and get as many goal scorers as you can, go and win the players that will win you the games. The defence will take care of itself over time. So,
to go back on that, my least concern right now for the short term is in midfield. I just think it's either the defence or the strike force that we're going to have to get right first. And I agree with you about Dessers. I certainly don't think Dessers is anywhere near as bad as people make it.
Correct.
No, it's definitely not. And I think just picking up, I totally agree with Ryan's summary there about a couple of the players like Danilo and Cortez, etc. I think that the defence, the fact of the matter is we've got players that can't cope. We can't win week in, week out, right? Doesn't matter how good they are. We proved last season we could go toe to toe with some really, really big clubs on a one-off game. That's not a problem. We've got, as it is at the moment, we've got a decent actual first team and squad. We proved that. Our problem was motivational consistency, if you like. We would go to St Mirren, Motherwell, even Ibrox for a lot of games and not show up until the last 20 minutes or the last half an hour.
Gordon, I remember
I think we went 2-0 down. I think we went 2-0 down in like 40% of games last season.
Do you remember? Common was saying last season that there was players scared to play at Ibrox. It was actually, I think he actually quite admitted they're scared to play. I think Ferguson alluded to it as well. But Ibrox needs to be a fortress.
But I'm sorry, but I think Mark made a good point maybe 5-10 minutes ago where he said about the atmosphere. It has become that kind of atmosphere where it comes a tipping point where the players are nervous because the fans are getting on their back, but all the fans want is success. So it's like, where is the happy medium? Where's a kind of equilibrium, if you like, of support and expectation meeting with the players' motivation. If you look back at last season, there was games last season that didn't show up at all, and that was unexcusable. If you ask me, in some of the games,
it's almost like it's almost like these the pre-season friendlies that are coming up. They're actually really, really important games this season because I think we're right. But we said, Mark alluded to at the start, we need to hit the ground running. The manager's here, right? We're going to have to back him, and there is an element of support that won't want to back him. Fair enough, but if he can get a couple of wins under his belt, then it might just start to change things. But he needs to get wins. And I mean, in all the friendly matches, don't play them as friendlies, play them and go out there to win the games.
See, one question I was going to ask you is, right, obviously the Champions League is quite important as far as like money's concerned, and I'm pretty sure the 49ers would love us to qualify for it because they're there. Do you think, as far as the amount of pressure that could possibly put the manager, now we know that this guy hasn't been favoured by the vast majority of our supporters. I suppose going about the 90% in certain polls didn't want him. You imagine he manages to get us qualified for the Champions League and we're going out and taking 5 and 6-0 stuffings, against teams. Do you think the fans will be forgiven against that, or do you think they'll call for his head? Because that's something that could potentially happen. If we're going away to Bayern Munich, we're getting beat 5-0. We know it, and obviously we'd never like to see that, but we've got to be realistic about where we are. Is that helping them, or is that going against them?
I think if he can get a good start in the league and we look as if he can compete for the league title this season, the fans would forgive that.
What do you think, Mark?
Well, faint heart never won fair lady. And I think that the getting into the Champions League provides you with so much money, so much excitement. Can it be worse than the last time we were there? So anything, a win would be an improvement,
I think that Liverpool game I'll never forget. I'd had enough at 5-1, and by the time I'd got to the concourse at the club deck, it was 6-1. By the time I got to the bottom of the stairs, it was 7-1. It just total
Lucky
collapse.
you stayed to the final whistle.
Simon, what are you doing with a part-timer on your show, mate?
The sad thing about it is that I was still there 10 minutes after the game. I was heartbroken. The thing is, we poked the beast in the eye that night. I think we scored that goal. But I just think that.
But again, we're not doing quite well at half time.
That's what I'm saying. We kind of poked the beast in the eye. We went down. It's when we were down to 10 men. I think that happened that night, did it? No. Connor Goldson get injured. Get injured. But
Leon King came on for him.
But to answer your question, Ryan, I would say that Rangers as a club, and especially with new investment coming in and things like that, Rangers should always strive for the best, and the best is Champions League football. Does that mean a few kicks in the balls? Quite possibly, but most of my life watching Rangers in Europe, there's been plenty of sore ones, to be honest, and that'll no change. Scottish teams will always struggle anyway in Europe, but I would much rather be in the Champions League than any other tournaments.
Yeah. Just a concern that the manager's going to be under the cosh. The guy's 1-0 down and we've not even kicked a ball yet. Does it put unnecessary pressure on him when people start calling for his head because of the results?
Is that Gordy went back in there? There you go.
So.
Yeah, sorry, it was when Mark said that phrase about fair ladies, my computer cut out. I don't know what happened. It was weird. When you disappeared there, Gordy, I thought you were about to get the Blackpool Dipper. The Big Dipper. I'm not sure.
Because you're not used to
talking
talking about
I can't wait for this weekend. If that's the start of the battle and you're sober in Glasgow now, I can't wait for tomorrow.
Well, I think we know by the end of the night, the only thing you're going to hear from women is "Eat your pie, love."
Bit lucky, eh?
Aye. You know what? We can. This is the club we've got, right? And it's high demanding, and it's always been demanding. Even in the 80s when we're going through bad times and crowds weren't what they were, but it's still a demanding crowd. What we don't want is a hysterical crowd.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we got to last year, but that was a combination of a lot of bad decisions. What have we got here? We've got a huge crowd, huge support, 98% season ticket pickup. It's not a bad stage, and it's I said to Martin today. I said Danny Wallace was the brother of Rod Wallace, or one of his brothers, played at Southampton, Man United, and he came up here when Rod was playing, and I saw him getting interviewed at the Man United fanzine, and he said, "I've never been at a club like Rangers before where there was such a sense of history amongst the fans and amongst the people that worked for him. If you win here, you're a legend. Your name will sound down the ages, and there's very few people get that chance. We keep talking about it, but you go virtually everywhere in the world, you bump into a Blue Nose. A lot of teams in England might be big. Leeds are big in Yorkshire, Newcastle are big in Newcastle, but how many clubs are like us They've got fans literally across the United Kingdom and across the world. Very few. We're very privileged. This is what history has bequeathed us, and this is where, whether it affects them or not, they've got a chance. They've got a platform to shine on. They've got resources that other people would give their eye teeth for. And it's not an easy job, but it can be a great job. And I hope they grab it with both hands. And it might be no bad thing that you're dealing with some tactics which are, I'm sure we've all, whether it's been a kids team or amateurs or whatever sport, but I think we all know if you're coaching a team, sometimes when you send those guys over the whitewash, sometimes you have to send them over with a game plan which says, slow it down. You're not as skillful as these guys. You're not as powerful. So therefore, you've got to slow the game down. You've got to break it down. You've got to play to your strengths. And then you've got to wait for that break, which will come. And that might be what we've got to put up with for a while. But you know what? If it pays off, nobody's going to grumble about it.
Nobody will do. We went to Manchester in 2008, did they?
Mark, just to throw something back at you as well here, I believe FollowFollow online fanzine is at 20 years old this year.
25, Simon, a bit like yourself. We do look younger than we are.
What I was going to ask you then, if you look back, see when Walter Smith got the Rangers job after Souness left, what do we think the online reaction would have been like then? It would have probably been quite similar to what it was with Russell Martin getting it. A lot of people would have thought Walter wasn't the man for the job.
It's difficult because of what Walter did, and you look back then, you go, how much of a profile did Walter have under Souness? Wasn't really mega, as I recall. He grew into it, but he was there, took over the reins when Souness went away, and as we all know, going into that last day of that season where we had to win, a draw was no use to us. That was, perhaps the making of the Walter legend, And
feels like only yesterday.
And the thing is, I think the fanzine started in 1988, and then we went online in 2000. At that point, there'd been a guy who was a student, and he this is like before most people had email, and he put up a wee website that was just a picture of the front page of FollowFollow, and just said, if you want a copy, you write off to the post box. And then a guy, it's a Hibs fan called Mark Rinaldi, he got in touch with me and said, I know you don't really have a website, but none of the Rangers websites out there are that good, but FollowFollow's got a cachet about it because of the size of the fanzine. So we started the website then, and it's just grown like topsy and turvy. It's just unbelievable how it's survived and thrived. So I mean, my biggest thing about it is, Simon, is the number of people that you get coming in and that pool of talent you've got amongst Rangers fans. The real buzz, I think, about being a Rangers fan is that you've got all these talented people, and they start off maybe in FollowFollow or elsewhere. They might start their own websites now, and they get going, and they've got something about them. It might be one issue, and then they start to fly, and it appeals to the punters, whether it's Erskine, whether it was the red and black scarves, whether it was the Trust. You've had all these projects that kind of started out in FollowFollow, most of them, and they blossomed into something really big and really good, and things that we're all proud of now. And we don't really, we're very lucky to have that as a support that we've got. These kind of talented people who it ties in with the whole ethos of the club, what they're doing,
Yeah.
So this year, I think it was the 10th of August we started. So 25 years and it's just flown by. So thanks to everybody that's contributed over the years.
Congratulations.
Well done.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well done. Hey guys, what have we got to finish up with? Any comments or anything?
No, I've had to put a couple of that mob out for the other side of the road already. Great pleasure.
We do know that there's one word that they don't like.
Don't want to get banned, but no, I thoroughly enjoy that. I wish more of them would come on so I can get there. No, most of the boys have been, pretty confident about it, pretty positive about it. Sorry, on there. So there was one there that I think we spoke about there. Russell Martin's keen to bring Shanklin in. I would be right across to Gorgie right now and grabbing him by his nostrils and pulling him back over the M8 to sign for us immediately.
That would be a free transfer, wouldn't it?
Aye, absolutely. Yep.
Aye, and I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers have spoke to him in private, obviously, and about this. You would probably pay him about $7 or $8 a week, I'd imagine. I don't know much about the wages, but
I don't think he'd be difficult to deal with. I don't think he'd be difficult to deal with, mate. I don't think he'd be difficult to deal with at all. The thing for me is that one of the things I'm obviously trying to put a positive spin in Russell Martin. Russell Martin will go out and use the Scottish market if he believes that they're good enough. See somebody like Ancelotti coming in, I'd be worried they would end up flooding it with second-rate foreigners and taking gambles and possibly getting influence for agents and all this kind of other stuff. I think Martin will be, strong in what he's doing. If he believes that there's a Scottish talent there, I don't think he'd be scared to actually go out and grab it. Whereas somebody like Ancelotti, I think, obviously a new manager, new coach, might have that wee bit of nervousness that he wants to just trade in his own market and markets that he's used to, use connections that he's used to. So that's one positive spin. I think you'll see, 3, maybe 4 Scottish players on top of Cameron coming in.
Aye. I know there was talk of Jamie Vardy. Is he free? I know it's obviously it's a big wage bill.
He'd be free.
Aye, well, I said this to my mate earlier on about Vardy's wages have been mental, right? He'll be in 100k plus down in Leicester, right? Aye. But we get to the end of the season, right? We're coming towards the end of the season after the split, and we'll be going to Celtic Park in the last game of this after the post split, assuming that we get in the top 6, which of course we will do, right? 0-0, 10 minutes to go. You turn around to your bench, you're needing a goal to win you the league. Danilo's sitting there, or Jamie Vardy's sitting there. Who you want to put on? Jamie Vardy. It's Jamie Vardy all day, innit?
I'd rather play Reg Vardy.
But you know what I'm getting at.
Aye. It's a big gamble. It'd probably be worth. I don't know if we can afford the wages. That's my point I'm making.
Well, we brought in Aaron Ramsey, who was in over 400 grand. Obviously, the less said about him, the better. But we brought in Defoe, who was apparently in ridiculous wages at Bournemouth. So there's ways in which the club can make these things happen.
Aye, well, Roof would have been on a big wage as well.
Aye, Roof was the highest earner at the club apparently. Goldson as well. So there's ways in which we cleared enough dross off the wage bill that I'm sure we could probably carry something like that for a year. And do we get a tie-in with Red Bull? We know he loves his cans of Red Bull and stuff like that. Do we put Red Bull all over Ibrox with Jamie Vardy standing with cans? That make them happy? Image rights and all that kind of crap.
Can I just say that Simon, you mispronounced it. It was Reg Barney.
All right, aye.
And as well,
There you go.
as well as being a favourite, a good actor on the buses, he was also a very famous pianist. And now, Gordy, I said pianist there, mate. Don't want you getting all excited.
Well, not exactly, because I, as you well know, Mark, I'm a big fan of the keyboard.
Indeed.
I'm glad you said keyboard there, God.
He's always playing with his organ.
They've not got keyboards and flute bands, do they? No.
Anyway,
Aye,
thanks for lowering
We'll
the
see.
tone of the evening.
But that's what we're looking for.
We'll
We're looking for I think we're looking for a kind of a signing that's going to get the fans a wee bit excited.
Aye, and there's a comment here for Jim saying that he's 37. It's a big no. There's loads of people saying that we should have kept Balogun. Balogun's 35, 36. So
I thought he was talking about me.
Definitely not, Simon.
We're only talking one season. Just till we stabilise. We get him in for a season. He's not going to cost us anything as far as transfer fees are concerned. We get him in for a year. It gives us time to find our feet. It gives the manager a chance. It gives the board a chance to get the sponsorship deals and all that kind of stuff sorted out. Get the cash flow moving. Why not? Just plugs a gap.
It's a big name. It's a big name, and it's a guy that can put the ball in the net. Mm-hmm. That's what we need now.
Absolutely. He's a goal scorer. We need goal scorers. He's a goal scorer.
The only thing I think is that he's probably getting offers from Saudi and other places, that might just.
His agent could be using. There's always all this stuff going in the media. He could be using Rangers as leverage, basically.
No doubt about that. Aye.
That happens all the time. Now people just drop our name in constantly to use it as leverage because we play in Europe.
Look at the number so-called prospects that we had as a manager, and that a lot of that was just the agents firing in a name to a reporter, and it's the back page of the papers the next day, which lists his profile, even if he was never even considered by Rangers.
Yeah,
But
many times it's Kenny McLean's contract come up down at Norwich, and he's renegotiating his contract. All of a sudden, he's going to Rangers, and next
Ollie
thing
McBurney was another one.
he's signing a new contract.
I think, to be honest, the next couple of months, it's going to be back to being what football fans like. There'll be signings. There'll be rumours of signings. This year, I think there'll particularly be loads of signings, and that's what drives traffic to everybody. Because that's what people love speculating on. They love going to, other clubs' websites, finding out what the guys have been like, looking for clips. Everybody dreams, and that's really what being a fan's all about, is the hope that this time they get it right, that they get the right formula, that we take off. Listen, there's going to be ups and downs. I've no doubt about that. You can quite easily get gubbed in the two friendlies and think, why did we organise them? That wasn't a great start to the season. We should have been playing Albion Rovers at Clifton Hill instead. But that happens every year. It's a game we love.
Yeah.
He's wanting to finish up in a few minutes, guys. He's happy with that.
Aye.
Yeah. Can I just give a plug out to the pre-season party we're organising at GLS just before we finish up? Super excited about this. GLS we're over in Belfast and Sandy Row for the 12th of July celebrations, and we're really, really excited to be asked by the KOB Club in Sandy Row to host the event on the 10th of July. Tickets are on sale now. If you go to www.glstv.co.uk/shop, or if you click the link I put on our website and our stream tonight, Mark, we might be sharing it to follow, so who knows? Don't want to spoil the surprise. But we've been asked to. We have been invited over by Sandy Row, great club, a KOB club over there, great friends of the show, and we're really looking forward to going there. So please support us and join us. It'll be a great party, and we have our guests. We're going on a flip band, and Stuart and Jodie for the journey back as well. So it'll be a really good night.
I'll do a wee shout out to the Blackpool True Blues and the Gallant Pioneers. They're having the end of season party weekend this weekend. Myself, Gordy, and a few thousand other Rangers supporters will be down there.
See you in 45 minutes.
I'll not see you at the bar. You've not got your sat nav for you. And I'll see the afternoon and Loyal. We're travelling down with them. So a big shout out to Sinky for he does a great job every year. That's me getting free booze in the way down now. Look forward to seeing you at the weekend.
Great.
Anything else? You get any plugs for the pub?
The Black Bill and Canvas Line, that's the only plug out I've got.
Yeah. Can I put a plug out to Lucy Pinder? I look forward to see you soon at Ibrox, darling.
You never know.
What's this?
It's the manager's wife or girlfriend. I don't know what she is.
Yeah.
Don't Google her on a work device, mate. Make sure it's your own personal device if you're going to Google her, pal. All right, trust me.
Have you seen the Oswalds have nipped right in and they're offering
Yeah.
a Pinder colada?
That's what we're referring to, yeah. Aye.
And I put two of them with cherries on top, so wild.
I was actually getting
at its best.
Well, I was getting my way talk the morning, getting pinned on 2 zeros in the back yet. So
just look at 69.
So quickly we forget Mrs. Polster, eh?
Or Karen Jardell for the older generation of Rangers supporters.
Certainly wasn't Mrs. Moles, that's for sure. What are we talking?
Oh, you.
A lovely lady, I'm sure. Sorry.
None of that Celtic talk on here, thank you.
What a great note to sign out on.
Aye, right. Well, we wish them well, Mr. Martin and his team.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
All the best,
They've
guys.
got the gig, they've got our support.
Yeah, we're back them, 100%. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Cheers. Take care.